Hello, hello. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. We have a good crew joining us today, so we'll just give just a second or two more before we kick off. So happy to see some familiar faces. Well, names, not all the faces yet, but that's okay. You can keep your video off if you would like. All right. 10:01. I think we're going to kick off. Thank you so much for everybody attending. We're excited to share more today about our topic. Excited that you all are excited to join us as well about AI tools and how they're really changing the game for many things, but obviously in our world, a lot in website management and hopefully passing on some knowledge to you all that you can use yourselves. If you aren't already familiar with Pixo, we are a software consultancy in Champaign-Urbana, and we create custom apps, websites, and software that really address unique business challenges and think about the people that are using them and engaging with them first as we develop those. I'm Danielle Hendricks. I am the Director of Business Development here at Pixo, and I'm really happy to help facilitate this and honored just to have you all with us and be able to share more today. It's probably going to spark a lot of questions. We hope so. We'd love to talk about this work. And so, as Jason does his presentation today, we just want you to know that we enjoy these questions. Please add them to the chat as we're talking. Hopefully, we'll be able to have some Q&A at the end as well, where we can just talk freely about this topic some more and see what questions you all have. Besides Jason doing this presentation today, I also have one other colleague, Shelby, in the room. She is labeled as Pixo Sunroom, but she does have a name, Shelby. And she is going to be doing the recording and then putting some links in the chat to share today, and also following up with email with helpful information and takeaways from today as well. So again, if you have any questions, we love to hear those. Don't hesitate. And we will also include my email and Jason's email in the chat. So if you do want to follow up afterwards with us, you can as well. Shelby is going to share a quick poll to get us kicked off today too. Just know there's no wrong answers. So just take a look at these. We just kind of want to know what your experience is using AI tools. And once we get some of those results, I am going to turn it over to get started today.
I'm going to take the poll myself.
Yeah.
Am I an expert? Is anybody an expert? I don't
Uh,
know. We'll find out.
we will.
All right. Are we ready, Danielle? Should I
I think
start?
so. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's get started. I'll kick it over to Jason.
All right. Thank you. Um, yeah. I'm going to start, well, I guess, by introducing myself. Jason Rambeck. Oh, sorry. Interrupted by the replies. What were the replies? We get any good info?
Yeah, looks like most have experimented with a few AI tools. Some use it regularly. It looks like we have an expert in the house.
Okay.
Um,
Very cool. All right, back to our previously scheduled program. My name is Jason Rambeck. I've been working with the web for 20 plus years, building websites, developing websites, but also involved in strategy and marketing and user experience and all the different levels of what makes a great website. I'm this currently senior web developer here at Pixo. I'm really excited about this topic because, as with so many other disciplines and industries, like AI is just changing the game. So one of the things that I really wanted people to get out of this presentation here was for people to level up their game with AI in a way that, and maybe isn't obvious. And the way I like to frame this is looking at these chat tools really from being just a tool to becoming a real partner for you. And so I think the way that I'm going to frame it today is creating a consultant, somebody that you can pull from and ask quite good questions, and you're going to train it to give you really, really good feedback, really good, even full solutions. I talk to people, it seems like every week, about how they're using these tools. And by the way, one of the other things I wanted to bring to this presentation was to not use specialty things. There's so many things you can do with AI. You can, create apps and use their APIs and all that kind of stuff. My goal here is to help you use the tools you're probably already using and just do them way, way better. So yeah, leveling up, creating this partnership with these tools and using them just in a way better way to get better results. So the secret sauce here is this setup that I'm going to share with you. And the setup is what's going to kind of change the game, as the title of this presentation says. So first of all, the setup here that we're going to use is Claude. Claude is an AI chat tool, just like ChatGPT, which is by far the most popular tool. And I use Claude for a couple different reasons. One reason is just I'm used to it. Okay. But it does have some features that I really like that we're actually going to use today. One is projects, and this ability to sort of determine a kind of thing that you want to work on, and you want it to sort of work in a certain way or give you certain kinds of responses. Other tools have something similar to projects too, but I like how simple and straightforward Claude's projects are. The other thing that I love about Claude is it has this feature called artifacts, where when you ask it to create something for you, whether that's code or a document or a script, some sort of writing, it sort of stores them in not just in a thread message like you might usually see, but it creates kind of a document for you to kind of reference or pull out or continue to update and build. And I really love that about Claude. I think some of these other tools, Gemini in particular, but even I think ChatGPT also have a similar feature that they're starting to build, but I still really, really like Claude's version. Here's the other big secret sauce to working, especially with websites, because we're going to be auditing our own web pages and navigation structures and just actually giving Claude, in this case, a lot of dense information. And we want it structured well, and we want Claude to really understand it. And if you're not familiar with Markdown, well, let me first say, Markdown is something that is really important for you to learn. It's a syntax for just how to add headings to text that's in plain text. So if you're using a Word doc or obviously a web page, you have H1, H2 heading elements in a web page, or a Word doc, you have the formatting settings and whatnot. But most of these chat tools don't have formatting tools, but it uses Markdown, and Claude does actually natively. And even though you might not see it, it's using it in the background. So I'm going to encourage everybody to go learn it. There's a link that we'll share at the end with some documentation on how it works. I guarantee you it's not that big a deal. It's pretty simple, but AI loves Markdown. It loves to read it. It loves to write it. And if you can understand it and work with it, you can, again, get better results from these prompts by giving it lots of rich formatted content that it can then give you great results in return, especially when it comes to like auditing a web page, which a web page is really formatted in very similar ways that Markdown can support. And I'll just give you kind of an example here of what Markdown looks like if you're not that familiar. So this is just some text here where you have a single hash, the Department of Computer Science, that's an H1. If you translated that to HTML, 2 hashes, that's an H2. Programs offered, that's 3 hashes, that's an H3. And then you have bolded and bulleted lists here. And you can kind of see how this formatting works. Here at the bottom, you have a quote with this greater than sign, and then you have links here at the bottom that represent, links on a page or calls to action on a page and that kind of thing. So it's pretty simple to learn, but if you can learn it, you're really going to up your game in using these chat tools with AI. All right, and finally, the last bit of this secret sauce is what I'm going to call the master prompt. And this is like the context that you're going to give these chat tools before you prompt it or with the prompt. And it's going to be, we're going to talk about 3 different kinds. There's probably more that you can come up with, but these are really solid ones to start with. One is a persona. And we'll talk more about what's in a persona. We'll actually look at a persona that we built. But a persona is just telling the chat tool to act like a certain kind of professional or person and whatnot, kind of focusing its direction on how it's going to respond to you. A style guide, we're going to use this for auditing some content on a page in a certain way, sort of to match a style guide that we have. And then finally, we have what I'm going to call a digital strategy blueprint, which is, in this case, it's going to be an organization's sort of master sort of plan for what's their strategy online. And it's going to have a lot of rich content in there that you can build and then use to prompt and build out or work with your strategy on your website, potentially other areas as well. Okay, so let's get started on actually kind of implementing and walking through how some of this stuff works. And one of the first things that we're going to do is we're going to audit an existing website or several websites that I have for examples. And here's just kind of a broad list of some of the things that we're going to do today. So we're going to take a website and look at its navigation structure to optimize it. Really, really important for a website is to have good navigation where people can find what they're looking for. And we're going to update do another example. We'll update the navigation to align with brand guidelines. This is an actual real use case that we came across that was really a fun example too. We'll identify where to add new content to a website. That's a really common thing. You have a new page, you want to add it to your site. Where does it go? It doesn't naturally fit under, one place. Maybe there's two options I get to choose from, or I have no idea. We'll get help with that. Audit academic jargon on a page. We do a lot of academic websites here at Pixo, so we're used to trying to figure out how to. All right, we have to talk at a certain level. Not everybody's a professor or familiar with all the academic terminology. So let's keep our content more readable. And then just a general audit here, number 5, enhance a complex page for better readability. And then finally, we'll create a new service offering page, actually generating page content for us based on some really good context that it can work from. All right, so let's first start off with this first master prompt that we can build out here, which is a persona. So a persona is just a description, like I said, of the role that you want the LLM, the large language model, ChatGPT, Claude, or whatever, to take when it interacts with your requests. And so an example, it could be very, very simple, like this example, where it says you're a professional content strategist skilled in information architecture, usability, and user experience. And you can just start off with that, and that's way better than nothing to have that persona start off with your prompt or be a part of your prompt. And what that's going to do is really focus the response around that persona that you've set. However, you can go way further, and that's what I want to show you next here. So I'm going to go ahead and switch here to my text editor because I have a content strategist persona that is much more rich than just a single sentence. And it's not just a content strategist persona, but it's a university content strategist persona that has expertise in all these different areas, okay? Has knowledge areas about, again, university-specific things here, deep understanding of website structures and what the different kind of areas or departments are in an academic setting, user groups, who's visiting our site, comprehensive knowledge of just educational context. And one of the things you'll notice here is this isn't like a book, right? You could probably write a whole book about how to think about this and be an expert in these half a dozen different areas. But we don't need to do that because Claude is going to bring all that with it. Claude is an expert, but it is so broad, the knowledge it brings, that just by defining just some of these details, we're kind of narrowing it down so that it's more focused in the way that we want. So we have analysis approach, structural analysis, content quality analysis, user experience analysis, and then one of my favorite things here to do with any kind of these prompts here is to include information here at the bottom. I'm calling it feedback style, where you tell Claude in this case how to respond to you, what kind of feedback to give, and maybe what format, And this first one is really, really important because, and it says here, begin with acknowledging the strengths before addressing areas for improvement. So we're specifically trying to ask how to make something better. So of course, it's going to tell us what's wrong with our page or site or whatever. And it's nice to be so a human person that you're going to talk to is probably, especially if they're good with other people, are not going to just start telling you all the bad things. They will tell you, hey, you got some things here that are actually good that are going for this site, but here's some areas for improvement. And we want this to have more of that kind of natural feeling as well. But then we get into other things too. We want actionable recommendations, not just vague criticisms. We want to balance the strategic with practical, but we also want to learn. So we want you to tell us why you're making these recommendations. We want to be able to take this information and filter it through our own expertise and decide if your recommendations are good or bad or indifferent. And then finally prioritize. We know that not we can't do everything. A website is always moving and growing, and so you can never have it nailed down and perfect, but we want to prioritize things and continually make them better. Okay, so this is a really robust content or a persona for a content strategist. All right, next we have a different kind of master prompt that we actually use with a persona. And this is going to be a style guide. And I'm going to jump over again. And let's pull up our university style guide. Okay. So you can see the theme here. We're really focusing on a university setting. And this style guide gets into much more detail about the exact kinds of ways that we want to present our content. So we have tone, where we have this academic tone that we want to take, where we kind of want to be welcoming and inviting and warm, but still look professional and whatnot, and clear and direct. And then we have content structures, scannable formats, inverted pyramid, which is a whole thing, chunking information, making things readable and scannable, and that kind of thing. Sentence structures, very specific kinds of things that are, a lot of these are just best practices for website stuff in general. Some of them are more university kind of setting oriented. Vocabulary considerations, reading levels, word choices, etc. Content types. So this gets into university specific things. What are the kinds of sections the university website has that we want, the conversation to know about? Academic pages, admission pages, research stuff, student life, administrative things for, existing staff that need to use the website as well. And then we have really clearly who our audiences are, prospective students, current students, faculty, alumni, parents. And one of the things you'll notice too is our persona kind of had this as well. So we had our persona, which was a content strategist with a university experience that also had this list of audiences. So you can see there's some crossover here, but they also work really well together, and we'll use this here in a minute, and you'll see. Digital optimization, we just want best practices. Mobile, it's got to be mobile friendly, search optimized, skimmable. It's got to be easy to read and get points across quickly. And then good call to action language, because we're trying to pull people in. We want them to move on to the next thing and follow the user journey that we have set for them. And this is a good thing. One of the things you'll note in some of these prompts here that is really good to call out here is including things that are negative. So not just here's the things to do, here's the things to be, but here's what not to be. And again, treating the Claude more like a human, where you can get somebody up to speed by telling them, oh, here's the things to be in, but here's the things to watch out for. And so common issues to flag, redundancy, passive voice, dated information, wordiness, so on and so forth. And then also, here's another strategy to use when creating these prompts is give it examples. Again, very human-like. Humans, you can give them all the bullet list of things to consider and the rules and the guides, but there's nothing like a good example to get somebody to really capture that idea and stick with them. And Claude, all these tools, all these AI tools, they're the same way. So instead of using this phrasing, this is the preferred version of that phrase. And we have a second example. Instead of this phrasing for this, having the deadline here in the middle of a sentence, man, that deadline should be prominent right at the beginning, and then we should add context to the end. So a good example to kind of talk about or get at how the content should be readable and skimmable and that kind of thing. Okay, so we have our persona. Now we have a style guide. I think I said this already, but just as a reminder, AI, ChatGPT, Claude, all these tools that we're using, we should think about them as consultants, and we should filter everything that it gives us through yourself. And one of the things that AI is doing is it's making people more powerful, giving them more expertise to draw upon. But you have to remember that you're the expert, you are in the driver's seat, and ultimately you're responsible. So I don't actually, I think there's a lot of worry about this. I don't see it as much. And I don't feel it as much of a concern, but I think there's a lot of worry, especially from people in management maybe who are concerned that people are going to use AI and they're just going to have content generated, copied, and pasted, and it's going to be bad. And of course, that's a concern. And so you do need to be cognizant of that. AI isn't perfect, doesn't get everything right. Maybe it gets nothing fully right. We should consider it a consultant. We should measure the results and see what we think of it and add our own thinking, continue to refine those results if needed, if need be, and whatnot. So carrying on, we're going to now do some stuff. Okay. And we're going to get into Claude and have do some prompting here. So the first task that we're going to do is we're going to optimize the navigation. Okay, so I have a website for the Illinois Marathon, and we're going to optimize the website. One of the things you'll notice is the prompt. The basic prompt is very simple. I need to optimize the information architecture for Illinois Marathon website. This is a massive event attended by thousands of people every year, and here's the current situation. And then we have the context that we want to give it. One, we're going to give it a navigation structure so it knows what to optimize. We're going to give it some other information too that's going to be really helpful. What are the audience groups, right? That would be helpful to know. Analytics insights. What are the current popular pages we have right now? And then, hey, people have been giving us feedback. Include that in this prompt. So I'm going to jump over to my text editor here again, and let's see if I can find our Illinois Marathon general navigation prompt. Yes, here it is. Okay, so I kind of built this out here because it didn't fit in my slide, but this is all of the text that you're going to put in this prompt. And what we're going to end up doing is uploading the navigation because it's quite long, just for ease of use. But here's the primary users. All right. Here's the tasks based on analytics. We're not giving it percentages or numbers. We've read the analytics. We know that everybody goes to the registration page. We know that next everybody's looking to go into these landing pages because we got a lot of spectators, and then volunteers, and then vendors, and then finally people who are going to race results. So we can bring this information and say, hey, these are important pages in order. And then finally, hey, we got emails, we've gotten feedback from personal contact with people. They can't find the race results. Where is that? Can't find it. I didn't realize when I was planning that it was an after party. I didn't know where to park in all my planning. And I didn't know that my kids could run in the race. So giving, again, all this great context when it's thinking about a good navigation structure, well, what makes a good navigation structure? Well, supporting our audience, supporting their needs, and that kind of thing. And then finally, this is just some guidance so that it gives us the results in a way that we want. So, hey, here's some limitations. We can't have more than 5 top level items. We don't want to go too deep in the navigation. Again, tell us why you made these recommendations. We're shooting for clarity, so on and so forth. Okay, so the next thing I'll show you here is we have the navigation. And one thing to know, this is in Markdown. It's just a nested list that's in Markdown. And this is the website navigation that we're going to include in our prompt. So it knows, obviously, what it needs to optimize and give us the results back from. All right, now I'm going to jump over to Claude. Okay, so I've done all these prompts already. And you notice all that information in the prompt is here. And we uploaded the sitemap. So it has that context. And for all intents and purposes, Claude and I think every other chat tool allows you to upload things, and it doesn't include it in a different kind of way. So if you like to organize your stuff in files and just want to upload them, or if it's just hard to read because you just can't put tons and tons of information in here because it gets too long and hard to manage. And sometimes there's limitations to how many lines of text you can put in these inputs. Mix and match as whatever works for you. Okay, so here's our response. It analyzed it. It spit out a recommended revised navigation structure, which I know you guys aren't familiar with the site, but it's a little bit different, made some changes. Registrations, participants, info, sort of organize things at a different top level and whatnot, and gave us exactly what we want. This is the recommendation from our Claude consultant. Then it tells us why. Hey, races and events replaces run to clearly communicate what users will find. All right, well, you can determine whether that's good or bad. The other thing to note, of course, is just like with any of these chat tools, it's not a one and done kind of thing. These master prompts are going to greatly increase the results that we get back, but it's not perfect every time. And it's still good to have an ongoing conversation, see some things that you have questions about, or something maybe that you missed in your original prompt, and have it update or give you additional information. This is just a great way to continue to use these threads and get more and more out of and refine your results. Recommendations for naming, quick links. Hey, here's what the quick link should be at the top of every page. Here's how we decided to promote and demote things. All right. So we've optimized here our Illinois Marathon navigation. Next, we're going to stay on the Illinois Marathon website, but we're going to add a new page to the navigation. So we have again, our Illinois Marathon website. It's attended by thousands of spectators. I need to add some information about parking on the day of the event. So help me identify where my page hierarchy is most logical, if it should be on its own page or combined with another page, and tell me why you made that decision. Again, I'm going to jump back over, and we have our prompt. Okay, all that stuff here. You'll notice that we have our sitemap, navigation hierarchy attached, and it's gone through and processed our information. It's given us a couple of options. Option one is to create a dedicated parking page. Option two is to incorporate it into a specific existing page called the weekend schedule. But it is recommending option one, and it gives us some reasons. One of my favorite here is searchability. If you have a dedicated parking page, if somebody's Googling for that, it's much more likely to show up at the top of a result if they're Googling Illinois Marathon parking, rather than if parking is just one bit of information, at the bottom of another page and whatnot. So really good information. Claude's really doing its job, telling us, giving us these recommendations and telling us why. All right, I'm going to keep going. If there's any questions, feel free to pop something in the chat or bring it up some other way. But we'll continue carrying on to another task here. So here's another task. And one of the things that I guess I didn't mention, but we're going to progressively get more and more advanced as we go forward here, using these personas and these style guides and strategy documents so that you can kind of see the progression of how useful they become and how different the responses are with those. So here we're going to audit a content page for academic jargon, review this university website page for terminology that might be confusing for prospective students. Let's go do a demo. First, the page we're going to be using here is the College of Fine and Applied Arts School of Architecture here in Illinois. And it's a pretty dense page. It's got a lot of content. That's one of the reasons I use it. So it's a good example. And one of the things I'm going to do is copy the URL. And we have a tool here. It's just a free website. I'm going to paste the URL in here. Let's see if this works in a live situation. And it converted it into a markdown document for us. Really easy. And again, this is my goal. Anybody can do this. Now we can create a file to upload to Claude where it has the page that we want to document rather than copying and pasting without the formatting, without maybe the links and that kind of thing. All of the content generally is in here, but it's in a much better format that Claude understands. So I'm going to jump back here, though. I have this saved. Well, actually, we don't need to, we can kind of see this here. So let's go ahead and just jump to the prompt, identify confusing academic jargon. All right, here's the list. All kinds of recommendations about and why they might be confusing, how to think about it. Plans of study, these acronyms that are industry terms that people might not understand. Really good information. Let's carry on. Brand updates for navigation. So this is an example from the same site, the University of Illinois College of Architecture, or School of Architecture. And this was actually a real use case where the university came out with some new brand guidelines that included things like colors and fonts, but it also included guidelines for how to name your navigation structures. And hey, this is a great use case for this. So when we did this, right, we have our prompt, and we're going to include our university persona, content strategist persona, our university style guide, and then we're going to include the navigation. So we have that here. Oh, and the final thing here, and I'll show you, sorry, just remembering, we have the university, it's not style guide, Illinois brand guidelines was just a web page that was on their website. And we just copied and pasted the stuff that pertained to the navigation and terminology, included it as a document, and I'll format it here so you can kind of see, which is great, and uses, again, in a very human way, examples. Use this, don't use that. Admissions, rather than use admissions, not apply, programs and apply, and so on and so forth. So there's going to be great context that we didn't even have to come up with because we're just trying to comply with the existing standards. We now have the standards here in hand, and we can upload this to our prompt and get some really good feedback. So jumping back to our prompt, not that one, this one. So we have our Illinois brand guidelines, our Illinois architecture navigation, which I didn't show you, but it looks similar to the other one. Maybe I can just open that up here. Ooh, that looks, it's hard to read. Actually, let me jump over so you can see it. Illinois architecture navigation. Yeah, again, just a simple nested list, but you can see there's a lot of stuff to audit. And this is one of the reasons this is great use for Claude, because how much work is it to consider all of these different things when a computer is way better at dealing with a big amount of information. But the final thing to note is that what about our persona? What about our style guide? Those things are important context as well. But one of the things you'll notice up here in the breadcrumb is that our prompt here is inside of the university website audit. And I'll jump over here to another tab. And we've created a project that has project knowledge in it in Claude. And I have a few prompts that I've created here in my history that were done with this project. And you'll notice that our content strategist persona is included and our university style guide. The other thing that you should notice too is there's only a certain amount of context that these tools can reasonably use. And it seems like a lot of context that we've added, but we've only used 1% of the capacity that we're allowed to use in Claude. And so you can imagine that you can really be thorough and just go gangbusters on adding more and more context, valuable stuff, good stuff, thought through context, not just anything, but you don't have to limit it. You can be as thorough as you need to be most of the time to get the more thorough you are with really good context, the better results you're going to get. All right, so back to our navigation. It gave us some recommendations, renaming, hey, programs and applying should be academics, consolidate some things, news and events, and move those around. Navigation depth could be updated. Wow, really good advice to limit those things, think about those things, implement some good hierarchy. And then here's a proposed update. which of course, an example, who can beat an example for taking those recommendations and looking at a real example? So is this perfect? Is this exactly what we need? I don't know. I mean, yes, it's better. Is there certain things that it missed or that we have to change? Probably. But we're way further ahead with very little work once we've created these things than what we otherwise would have been. In some ways, it would kind of be paralyzing to kind of think through all these things and change some headings that are almost different categories just to match the brand. And this has thought through those things for us and given us a lot of really, really good feedback. Okay, another one down, another task accomplished. All right, now here's the big one. And one of the funnest ones, I think, here is doing a comprehensive page audit. So we're going to go back to the School of Architecture here in Illinois, and we're going to look at a program page that's just really, really dense page. It's got a lot of content, a lot of information, which notoriously is great fodder for an audit, making it better, making it clearer, those kinds of things. So we have, again, here a simple prompt. Can you audit this page for me? Offer suggestions to make it better align with our style guide and best practices. Another thing to note here is that you can reference, so just like a human being would, if you tell it to align with your style guide and you've given it the style guide as some context, it will, and maybe you have a dozen different pieces of context referencing a specific thing like the style guide is actually really helpful to, again, focus it to utilize more of the style guide than the other context in what you're trying to do. Okay, let's go ahead and look at our results. Okay, so one of the things you'll notice here is we are in our project, University Website Audit Project. So it's got all of our context for our style guide and our persona and everything. The only thing that we uploaded for this particular post is the actual page that we want it audited, and it's all in this nice markdown format that is easy for Claude to read. And it gave us this feedback. Now, if you recall, one of the feedback elements we told it to give us was to tell us what's good, what are the strengths first. And that's exactly what it did. It told us all the good elements for the site. But then it quickly goes into areas of improvement, structure and organization things that we can consider, hierarchy, scannability, optimizing the table that's on that page, content quality, areas, user experience, accessibility things, calls to action. And then it gives some very specific recommendations, which again, our persona feedback style was, hey, give very actionable, specific kinds of recommendations, not things that are vague. So it's giving us some organization ideas, revised overview, or updating this overview section, so on and so forth. And actually, before I move on, because I want to show you the recommendations, I'll just walk through really quickly the site, just so you can kind of see just how much content that we have to sort of include in this program page. We have this overview, we have a call to action to apply, we have some really important date information about when it's due. I mean, this page is so long, it has its own table of contents. It's important to include faculty so people kind of get a sense for, who their professors and staff are going to be. Program details, which includes the format of it, the benefits you have. We have prerequisite information, degree requirements, all really, really important stuff. We can't leave it out, but it can be really dense. We include this table here on these degree requirements. And it just keeps going. Description information, elective information. And then we have all this information about in the enrollment process, which includes multiple things, including materials that you need, deadlines that you have to be aware of, and then additional information. And then finally, we have important links and just a way to get your answers questioned if you can't figure it all out. So that gives us a little bit context to go back to our audit and maybe realize here, wow, how helpful this is, how it's addressing all of these issues that we might be concerned about. And it just gets into all the details that we brought up. Now, one of the things that I did here was I did a couple of follow-up things. I asked it to create a report, which I'm not going to get into because it wasn't super helpful in my opinion. But then I wanted to do something else, which I thought would be really helpful for me to understand what its recommendations were, which is, hey, can you recreate this web page with the suggested recommendations? And it doesn't know what the page looks like. If you remember, we uploaded the content as Markdown. And so the revised example it's going to give us is also a Markdown structured page, but it's also very familiar to what we're seeing on a page because most of this content is just text and headings and lists and that kind of thing. And so just now we have this example that it gave us where it recreated this whole page to abide by our style guide, our rules, or the things that we're trying to do on this page. It brought up this great list of quick facts right at the top. So it's really easy to scan and get some really core vital information right away at the top of the page. Also, this call to action brought up a little bit higher. And then you'll just notice as we go through, we have more headings and more lists rather than paragraphs. It kind of lightens up it still delivers the information, but makes it, again, more scannable, a little bit more easy to read. We have this bold or this checklist for things you need to do beforehand. Kept that table, a little bit change in the formatting. Recommendations, again, more lists here. One of the things that it did with faculty, and I'm not sure if this is a bug or not, it added a little bit of HTML in here, but this was to identify, and if you read through the recommendations, that it actually understood that the core faculty was in a flat list that just kind of was one on top of the other, and it recommended putting that in a grid. So because it realized you don't really need to read all the information about every academic or each person, but you just need to know kind of generally who you're dealing with in this program. So it included all of those, but told us to put it in a grid. So it's a little bit more nicely formatted. Again, more and more lists. Now, is this right? It's actually really good, but there might be some considerations, right? We're not going to copy and paste this whole cloth, but some parts of it we might, other parts we might not. But again, we've gotten so far just within a couple minutes where we have really, really good place to work from and to update and audit this page and make it better. Okay, I did one more page here with this exact same prompt and audit. And I'm going to jump into that. I want to save like 10 minutes towards the end so we have some time if there's any questions. But we're going to do, I just grabbed actually another University of Washington architecture program page. And as I found, this one is even kind of had more of the issue of dense information. There was hardly any lists or clear buttons and whatnot, just a lot of big, long paragraphs. And I thought, oh, this would be a great opportunity to clean up this information and bring some best practices to it. So downloaded that into Markdown, uploaded it in this prompt. Can you audit this University of Washington Master's in Architecture program for me? Offer the suggestions to make it better align with our style guides and practices. Started off with our strengths, just like we asked it. Then it gave areas for improvement, all tailored to this page and what we wanted. And then at the end, it gives us specific recommendations for each section, which is really nice. But, and it actually gave us examples, but I love the Claude documents here. What do we call it? Artifacts. And so it kind of gave us this, threaded this information in the thread, but I wanted to create an artifact. So I said, can you recreate this page with the recommendations? And of course it did. And I think it's really obvious that you can see how much more readable this page is than how it was before. And you could read through it as somebody who's the expert, identify, oh, did it get it right? My guess is this is probably really, really a lot better and probably just needs some slight adjustments based on kind of what I scanned when I first read the original page. And you can see how this just looks so much more clean and easy to read and presentable and so on. Okay, so the last thing that I want to get into, which we haven't talked about, is our last master prompt. And we get to my slide, so I make sure I don't skip anything. The digital strategy blueprint. This is just another kind of bit of a format of context that you can give. we focused a lot on university stuff because we do a lot of that work, but the digital strategy blueprint is more of like a business or a nonprofit organization where you want something that encompasses your whole kind of business or organization. And I'll kind of show you what that looks like here. And so we have, so what this looks like, I have a actually fictional business here called Horizon Financial Planning that I created this blueprint for. And it breaks it down into different things. Now, one of the things that prompted really this whole webinar series, but these particular prompts with the personas and the style guides, and especially this strategy document, is we at Pixo, one of the things that we're known for and that we're really proud of is the discovery work that we do for our clients before we build a website. We interview people, we talk to them, we uncover information about what their needs are, what their goals are, who their audiences are, all that stuff. And we use that information. We of course give that information to our clients, but ultimately we're using it to build out a great website that accomplishes all their goals and needs. But one of the things we found is that rich information isn't always helpful beyond after the website launches. We're not seeing our clients using it very much, are referencing it. We sort of do, right? If we're still part of the project, but we're not always part of the project. Sometimes the website's done, we move on, they move on. And one of the things we've realized is with these AI tools, we can leave our clients with this rich information that they actually can more easily and readily use to continue to make their website better by leaving a bit of ourselves here as the consultant, that we've identified all this rich information and they can start prompting against it. Okay, so that's a little bit of context here and background, but we just have, all right, who are we? This is our name, this is our industry, our mission, key brand attributes. This is what we want, how we want people to think about us, and this is our personality. And then getting into more website specific things. Here's our audiences, our business segments. We have how do we think about our audience? What's their knowledge level? Well, it's mixed. Some people are really savvy, some people are not so much. Right, it's just a breakdown, and this has some structure to it. This strategy has some structure to it, but every organization is going to have different kinds of things that'll be useful, these different headings of things to consider. So key audience questions and needs, that's a great category to have, but your organization might have another category that's really helpful to sort of define your strategy, your goals, and that kind of thing. And then we get into content, voice, and tone that's specific to us. Writing styles, tone, words to use, right? This is of course great for SEO and just how you want to your writing to sort of sound, or you're using certain kinds of phrases. And of course, we always want to include the negative as well, so that we're thoroughly teaching our AI partner. Content strategy frameworks to consider, typical content structures, key messages, value propositions, and elements. And then, hey, part of our strategy is SEO and other digital things. So we have keywords for SEO that we want to be considered, content types, that is how we kind of structure our pages, resource guides, we have blogs, we have case studies. And then we have a preference for call to actions and how those are worded. So here's some examples for that. But we're also, because we deal with finance, we get some compliance things that we can say, things that we can't, things that we want to be aware of, all of that. And then finally, if you recall, give examples. So we have examples here, and this is a little bit different of a format. In this format, we have what we're calling a strong example of writing. And then we have a description of why that is strong, why we like that. It directly addresses the audience, offers specifics, and it connects our values. And then we have a weak example, and then how we would improve that. Again, treating it like a human. Examples are huge in helping train somebody in how to apply the rules, the guides, so on and so forth. All right. Finally, and we'll do this. This is going to go quick because I do want to make some time. But now we have this document here, and we're going to do something that I usually don't recommend, which is just creating a completely new page with AI. But I think this is a good exercise, and I think it's fair to say that this is you have to decide if you can do this, if you want to do this. But we're going to go ahead and give it a try. We're going to create a page about a new service offering for this Horizon Financial Planning Services. So we're going to tell it to draft a page about this new service called Pre-Retirement Portfolio Transition. And we're going to include our strategy blueprint doc. But we have to include details about the new service. And so a service can be anything. So there's no sort of organization to this, but you'll see an example of how this might look. And I think I have this here, New Horizon service page prompt. Yeah, here it is. And again, this is a good sort of example of how you might want to think about this. But I think if somebody's creating a page for a website and they're not a professional writer, they're not used to sort of thinking about all the best practices here. You have style guide, you have potentially a strategy guide that you're including, and you can just kind of do stream of thought writing about this service. Okay. So here's the details. Here's the overview. And here's some key components. You just bulleted lists. You're just getting words out on the page, how you think about this. Here's how the service delivery model, it starts with a consultation. Here's the outcomes I want people to know about. We've got pricing here. And then start guiding a little bit more. Okay, this page, and a lot of times this is how we think, but we often don't know how to get from point A to point B. And this is going to really help us by giving it all this information that we have on our head, and then telling it what we think we have in our minds, how we're going to get there, and then let it do its job. So the one final prompt here, this pre-retirement portfolio page, included this in a prompt, included our blueprint and strategy guide, and then asked it to create the page. And if you just read right now, you can imagine here, this looks pretty legit. I haven't read this closely. There's a whole thing with AI content sounding like AI. So you got to be aware of those kinds of things. And there's different strategies you can get to sort of, revamp it or edit it to make it sound less AI. But this is at the very least a great start. And you can go through and clean it up or edit it a little bit. But you're now, from getting to point A, just an idea in your head, to point B, you are way further down the path, if not almost there, with these prompts and tools that we brought to bear to Claude. Okay. We're at the end here, and I just want to sum up some of the main takeaways. Learn Markdown. It's not that hard. It will really help if you want to use these kinds of tools with web pages, with web navigations, with website stuff. Invest in the style guides, persona strategy documentations. Some of you already have this stuff. It just sits on a shelf or sits in a file somewhere on your computer. But if you can format it and get it usable, that is great. Share it with your team too, and share it with your team with the instructions on how to use it to do their job, create content, audit things, make things better. And the biggest takeaway here at the end here is continually iterate and make these guides better, these style guides, personas, strategy documentation. Your organization probably changes just like ours does. Things change. You learn new things. You realize new things. These things aren't one and done. As you use them, you'll even realize, oh, I need to add some more information, or this information I added isn't important, or it's kind of confusing things. So I'm going to pull it out. So those are the big takeaways. That's the end of my talk. We have some great links to share if you want to look into some of these things. But yeah, I'll leave it for questions here in the last few minutes.
There was one floating around. Claude has multiple options for free, pro, max. I'm just curious, Jason, were you using the free version to do this work, or did you have to upgrade?
Yeah, I did have to upgrade. So ChatGTP has like the best free thing ever. So you can just use it. I think when you pay, you get like ChatGPT has like projects that are called custom GPTs, and then you get the image generation stuff. And I think there is a limit to how many chats or things that you can do, but it's way higher than Claude. When I first started using Claude a lot, I would get to the I would get to the limit by the end of the day and I have to wait 24 hours to get refreshed with my new available tokens or whatever they called them. But I loved it so much, I decided to pay for it. So a lot of this work that I did, and if you're going to use it in these ways with adding all this context, you'll probably have to pay for the pro to get that, to be able to use it with all this context. And of course, projects is only part of the pro as well. But one of the things I would suggest is just trying these things. You don't have to use projects. Projects is really just kind of a handy, nice way to add the context without having to re-upload things. But you can just go ahead and just start a new thread without creating a project. Just upload 2 or 3 of these, guides that you've created, and then start your prompt, and then have a conversation and start another conversation. Upload those again to a new thread. So it's more of a convenience thing than anything, but there is a limitation on Claude. So that's a great question. I think that's one of the reasons Claude probably doesn't have as much market shares, because it's not as free as ChatGPT.
I have a question and a comment.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you so much. This is really helpful and insightful. I've learned a lot. I like that you're calling the AI as a consultant. It makes sense. It's a tool and you have to kind of, evaluate its output. I always think of it as an intern, a really smart intern that can be a
Yeah.
bit wild. So that always helps kind of just create boundaries in what it's spitting out. My question is, the personas, are you developing that yourself over time, or are you getting a resource for that?
It's a great question. So, um, one of the things I love to say is AI is really good at AIing. So, all of these, like the persona style guide and the strategy doc, um, were were a process, right, of using AI, including some information, knowing the direction I wanted to go, knowing we have some best practices I want to focus on, but like help me, draw out from those details, and several different prompts to create those, and was able to rather quickly sort of develop those based on, me having a conversation with a tool to generate those well, and even asking it, hey, I want to use this for AI, so help me, frame it that way. So that great question.
All right, well, we are almost to time. I don't want to hinder anybody from staying on and asking questions, but just to be respectful of getting close to that 11 o'clock time frame here in Central Illinois. I just wanted to say that thank you again so much for joining us, Jason. Thank you for presenting. It was wonderful to hear this. Even though I've heard it once, I learn things every time I hear it. So this is great. Um, we will be following up with an email that will have some additional resources, the links to these as well. And there eventually we will be uploading this video for you all to see again if you would like to go back through and watch it. Jason has also been excellent at creating some like physical resources, and we haven't yet shared them. So you will be our first group to get kind of a how-to guide on this beginning part where we're setting up those foundations. Love to hear your feedback on those. We hope to keep increasing those how-to guides down the road. So if they are helpful, we'd love to hear that. Or if you need something else, please let me know. We'll also be sending out a questionnaire that is really like what else can we provide in the future that would be helpful. So there'll be some prompts in there if you have nothing in mind at the moment, but if you have something specific, we'd love to hear what we could help provide in the future.
Great. Thanks, Danielle. Thanks everyone for coming. I enjoy this stuff. I hope everybody got a lot of value out of this. So it really is a new frontier.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.